I wanted to share one of the most powerful intention game brainercises here for free because I believe this way you will get a real taste and maybe even a rapid change in your life of what a simple mental exercise like this can actually do. Before I show you the exercise that you can start immediately and begin seeing results from, there is something important we need to talk about first. There are a few things we need to avoid before starting, because when you begin practicing this, something interesting may happen. You might notice certain uncomfortable emotions coming up. Frustration, resistance, maybe even anger. And that is actually a very good sign. Those emotions are not the problem. They are signals. They reveal the hidden programs and energy blockages that have been silently shaping your life up to this point. Most people try to push these feelings away, but awareness is the first step into transformation. When you start seeing what is happening inside your own mind, you finally gain the ability to change it. So if these emotions appear while listening to this, take it as good news. It simply means you are starting to see something that has been running quietly in the background for a long time. And don't worry, at the end of this video, I will also give you another gift that helps dissolve those hidden programs and energy blockages. So today, there are quite a few gifts coming your way. Now, before we move into the brainercise itself, which is a mental exercise that can change not only your life, but also the lives of people around you. I want to explain why this idea is so powerful. This is also why I call it the God in you brainercise. Because when you begin practicing it, you begin aligning yourself with the deeper creative force that exists within every human being. If you're familiar with the intention game, you may already know that our lives are shaped through 4 levels: our thoughts, our emotions, our actions, and our words. When these 4 levels begin to align, something very powerful begins to happen. But before we go there, I want to tell you a little bit about my own journey. If you knew me personally, you would probably see me dancing, talking, writing, studying, experimenting, and playing with life almost all the time. But it wasn't always like this. And actually, even before I started searching for truth, I simply wanted to be happy. To be honest, that was my first motivation. I didn't start this journey because I wanted to become philosophical or spiritual. I simply wanted to enjoy life. I wanted freedom. I wanted to wake up excited about the day instead of feeling like I was trapped in what many people call the rat race, the 9 to 5 paycheck to paycheck cycle. You know, work, bills, stress, weekend, and repeat again. So my first motivation was simple. I just wanted to build a life where I could do things I love. But what happened next surprised me. Because when you start asking the question, how can I be happy? The journey slowly begins pushing you deeper and deeper into bigger questions. Questions about life, questions about the mind, questions about what actually shapes our experience of reality. And without even realizing it at first, I slowly found myself searching for something much bigger. I didn't realize that all along I was trying to understand the mind itself. Why do some people seem naturally joyful while others feel stuck? Why do some people rise after failure while others stay trapped in the same situation for years? Why do some people see opportunity everywhere while others only see problems? And as I kept exploring these questions, something fascinating began to happen. The same ideas started appearing again and again in science, in psychology, in philosophy, in ancient wisdom traditions, everywhere. And they were all pointing to something surprisingly simple. That the mind is far more powerful than most of us have ever been taught. And once you begin to understand that, you begin to see that changing your life may be far more possible than you once believed. And this is where the story becomes really interesting, because many of the greatest thinkers, inventors, and achievers in human history discovered the same principle over and over again. Albert Einstein once said. Actually, I have him with me today. Okay, this is a slightly modern version of him, but still a cool guy. So Albert Einstein once said, imagination is more important than knowledge. Now, pause for a moment and think about who actually said that. Einstein was not just another scientist sharing an opinion. He was one of the most influential scientific minds in human history. His work on relativity changed how we understand space, time, gravity, and energy. His discoveries reshaped modern physics and continue to influence technology even today. In fact, something as simple as the GPS navigation system, simple, in your phone would not work without accounting for the physics Einstein described. And yet, this same scientist, one of the greatest analytical thinkers humanity has ever produced, emphasized imagination. Why? Because before every discovery, before every equation, before every breakthrough, there is first a picture in the mind. Einstein used what he called thought experiments. He would imagine situation in his mind, like traveling alongside a beam of light through space. And from those mental explorations, he began to understand how the universe works. In other words, some of the most important scientific breakthroughs in history began as images inside a human mind. Nikola Tesla worked in a very similar way. Tesla was one of the greatest inventors and engineers who ever lived. He held more than 300 patents and helped shape technologies that changed the course of civilization. But what makes Tesla especially fascinating is how he worked. Tesla explained that he could build machines entirely inside his mind. He would visualize every part of a machine, run it mentally, observe where something might break, and improve the design before ever building it physically. He once said that when he constructed something mentally, he could run the machine in his mind for weeks and detect problems without touching a single tool. Now let's move from science and invention to human performance. Consider Michael Phelps. Michael Phelps is the most decorated Olympian in the history of the Olympic Games. Across his Olympic career, he won 28 Olympic medals. 28. No athlete in Olympic history has ever reached those numbers. But what many people don't realize is how important mental training was in his preparation. His coach trained him to visualize races every day. Before competitions, Phelps would close his eyes and mentally swim the entire race. The dive, the strokes, the turns, the finish. He even imagined problems happening so he could mentally rehearse how to respond. At the 2008 Beijing Olympics, something remarkable happened. During the 200-meter butterfly final, his goggles filled completely with water. He couldn't see the wall. He couldn't see the pool. He couldn't see anything. But he still won the race and set a world record. Why? Because he had already swum that race thousands of times in his mind. Your brain is constantly rehearsing experiences. The question is, what are you rehearsing every day? Because most people rehearse frustration. They rehearse anger. They rehearse resentment toward others. They rehearse blame, and when those patterns repeat long enough, the brain becomes trained to search for more of the same. This is critical here. But what is fascinating is that this idea is not new. Long before neuroscience and modern psychology existed, ancient philosophical traditions were already pointing to the power of the mind. In Hermetic philosophy, there are seven well-known principles describing how reality operates. Some of these ideas are surprisingly familiar. There is the law of polarity, which suggests that opposites exist on the same spectrum, cold, warm. There is the law of rhythm, which tells us that everything moves in cycles, just like the seasons of the year: spring, summer, autumn, winter. Just like we move through seasons of life: childhood, youth, adulthood, and hopefully, if life has taught us well, the season of wisdom. There is also the law of cause and effect, the simple idea that every action creates consequences. But the very first principle in Hermetic philosophy says something remarkable. It says the all is mind. In simpler language, everything is mental. Think about how fascinating that idea is. Thousands of years ago, ancient wisdom traditions were already suggesting that our experience of reality is deeply connected to the activity of the mind. And today, modern psychology is beginning to describe something very similar. Cognitive psychology shows that our thoughts influence how we see the world, how we respond to people, and how we experience life. Even ancient philosophers understood this. The Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Your life is what your thoughts make it." Here, can I get this book? Why? I highly recommend reading this small book, Marcus Aurelius Meditations. Well, let's continue. So as he said, your life is what your thoughts make it. In other words, the experience of life is not determined only by what happens to you. It is deeply shaped by the way the mind thinks about what happens. And once you begin to understand that, something incredible becomes possible. If the mind is constantly shaping how we experience reality, then learning how to guide the mind becomes one of the most powerful skills a human being can develop. And imagine for a moment what would happen if this kind of thinking became normal. If children were taught this in schools, if families practiced it at home like we do, if leaders around the world trained their minds this way before making decisions that affect millions of people, instead of a culture built on blame, we would begin creating a culture built on love. Instead of secretly enjoying when others fail, we would celebrate when people succeed. And that is exactly what I want to show you next. Is so powerful, not because it is complicated, but because it is simple. And sometimes the simplest ideas are the ones that can change everything. Now, here is something important. Whenever someone blames another person for something, they are giving their power away. When someone says it's their fault, it's the system, it's the government, it's those people, what they are really saying is, there is nothing I can do. And the moment someone starts thinking like that, they place themselves in the position of a victim of circumstances, a victim of other people, a victim of the world. And the strange thing is that this way of thinking has become almost normal in our culture. It needs to be changed. Blaming has become a habit, but there is another way to look at life. Instead of living in what we could call a blaming culture, we can begin creating what I call a gaining culture. A gaining culture is very different. In a gaining culture, people ask a different question. Not who is to blame, but what can grow from this? What is possible here? How can this become something better? This shift may sound simple, but it completely changes how a person experiences life. There is a famous experiment that illustrates something very similar. Scientists once placed a hungry pikefish into an aquarium. On the other side of a clear glass barrier, they placed a smaller fish. So there was a glass barrier. The pike attacked immediately. Pam, pam. But every time it tried to reach the fish, it slammed into the invisible glass. Again and again it tried, and again it failed. So, after a while, the pike stopped trying. Later, the scientists moved the glass barrier completely, but something surprising happened. Even though nothing was stopping the pike anymore, it never attacked the fish again. The barrier had disappeared from the aquarium, but it remained inside the mind. And something very similar happens to human beings. We experience criticism, failure, rejection, disappointment, and slowly invisible walls appear in our thinking. Walls about what is possible, walls about what other people are capable of, walls about what we ourselves can become. But here is the beautiful thing. Those walls are not real. They are learned. And anything that is learned can also be unlearned. Now imagine something even more powerful. Imagine if instead of constantly expecting the worst from people, we trained our minds to see the highest potential in every human being we meet. Imagine if children learned to think like this in schools. Imagine if families practiced this at home. Imagine if leaders of countries and companies trained their minds this way before making decisions that affect millions of lives. Think about how dramatically the atmosphere of the world would change. Instead of competing to prove who is better, people would help each other become better. Instead of secretly enjoying when someone fails, people would celebrate when someone succeeds. Instead of fear spreading, possibility would spread. This kind of thinking is not naive. It is one of the most powerful mental disciplines a human being can develop because the world we experience together is deeply influenced by the thoughts we repeatedly think about one another. So when you begin training your mind differently, something remarkable begins to happen. This is why, by the way, Jesus said, love your neighbors. Your reactions will change, your energy changes, your relationship changes. Life begins to feel lighter, more creative, more playful, almost like a game. And this change does not start with governments. It does not start with systems. It starts inside individual human minds, with you, with me, with the way we choose to think about each other every single day. And that is why what I am about to show you is so powerful, because once you begin practicing this simple mental discipline, you are not only changing your own life, you are participating in creating a better world for all of us. And this is exactly why I call it the God in you brainercise. Now let me show you how it works. Let's hop on to another video.
The God in you brainercise. This brainercise is simple, but can have a significant impact on someone's life. Anyone who practices this brainercise every day and in every possible way will see transformative results. This is the complete answer for escaping the blaming culture and moving into a gaining culture. When you realize the paradox we are living in, you will understand why this brain exercise is so powerful. Before I explain how this works and what you may want to do for the rest of your life, let me share something you may already know. Whenever someone blames someone else for anything, they are giving their power away to that person or situation. When someone says, it's your fault, it's those people, it's the government, or it is the system, they are essentially saying, I cannot do anything about it, so I don't have any power to influence. This mindset leaves them in a state of victimhood. People who use words like that basically enslave themselves. I am totally against the concept of a circle of influence, because I believe that everything is in my circle of influence. I just need to figure out how I can influence things the way I am and the way I want myself to manifest. Now that you understand this, we can continue with the God in your, excuse me, with the God in you brainercise. If you want to see big changes happening repeatedly, this is the way to think. Whenever you see any person, your spouse, your father or mother, your child, your neighbor, the person serving you at the store, a homeless person begging for money, your boss, or even your worst enemy, you want to do this. You start to visualize how great that person is and how perfectly their life is going. Visualize the homeless person starting $1 million company and helping other homeless people out of poverty. When you see your spouse, even when they are angry at you, feel proud and imagine them living their dream life, achieving everything they ever desired. Imagine how amazing your children are and how their future is full of happiness, even if they seem to struggle. See your neighbor succeeding in life and giving you the friendliest smile. See your neighbor buying a bigger car than yours and celebrate with them. When you go to a grocery store, see the cashier being happy and having the best time of her life. Imagine her going home to her children and giving them a big hug. Imagine that she receives millions of dollars and never has to work again. Picture your worst enemy realizing their mistakes, making a complete 180-degree turn, and becoming the best version of themselves. Or maybe it is you who need to do this. See the sick person becoming healthy and the crippled walking again. This is your true blessing to the world. Remember, isn't this the world you want to live in? It all has to start with your imagination to become reality. Imagine a perfect world where absolutely everyone is happy, no matter what they do. Some people like to push through hardship and feel pleasure from breaking new records, while others love to chill out and take it easy while playing friendly games. There is something for everybody. And in the end, the only thing that matters is whether you are happy with the way you live. Are you truly happy and enjoying every single moment? Squeezing happiness out of life. Even moments of suffering can be turned into happiness when you master the game of life. Now, as said, this is simple. But I didn't say it would be easy. To me, real sickness comes from enjoying when someone is doing worse than you. Isn't it so? This is the sickness, and what we want to do is enjoy all the success for others. This is how we remove the ego, how we become saints, and how we build a world where you can trust and be safe. This is the world where we all want to live, where everyone is thinking the best for each other. It has to start with us, with you, with me, with I.
One more thing before you go. Here are few bonus tips most people overlook. First, I have to say that I'm so happy and grateful if you do this practice. It is one of the most powerful practices that can change your life fast. And you should start to see physical changes in your environment as well as within yourself, of course. Some people find this difficult, especially when they do this for people they know, like family members, siblings, friends, or neighbors. And it is okay and perfectly normal to feel like this. Actually, it will show you where your own energy blockages are. If you feel resistance to doing this practice for someone in particular, try to go through every person you know in your life and do this practice. If for some reason it feels difficult to see someone living a life that is even beyond your own success, even beyond your own happiness, so that they get everything you could wish for and more. And if it is difficult to imagine this, then stop and feel the difficult emotion and sit with it. See your thoughts that are creating this emotion. Just become aware and sit with it. You don't have to do anything. Simply become aware for now. Yes, there are advanced techniques to let go of these limiting blocks that are, by the way, slowing your true power from coming true. But the first step and the most critical step is to become aware. I have collected a 6-part belief change kit for you, free of charge, so that you can recognize and clear what is slowing your success, or sometimes even stopping it completely. I have a friend who believes that life always goes down at some point. And this is why he has always lost everything he gathered. Everything he gained, he has lost. There was another limiting belief programmed as well that made him fall back every time he achieved some success. These kind of back and forth movements happen when there is something pushing the brake and reverse at the same time you are trying to move forward. In the 6-part belief kit, which you can download for free, I will show you how to uncover your limiting beliefs, program them, and also install new beliefs that will put your life in the fast lane of making your dreams come true. Go to this website and you will find it in the description as well. theintentiongame.com/beliefkit. But prepare to do some work if you go there and download it, because it is like a workbook that you actually need to complete. Not just read, you have to do the things that is asked. I highly recommend that you always test my practices, because you cannot learn to thrive or do anything just by reading about it. Reading how to drive a car is not the same as driving the car, of course. So take a pen and paper. Take one day off from everything else and answer the questions you find in the belief kit. Stay healthy, stay wealthy.